We're back on WGN-TV Political Report. Let's turn back to those brand new congressional districts dropped by Illinois Democrats late yesterday evening. Capitol Bureau Chief Mark Maxwell joining me live this morning with the latest. Mark, what a surprise. First of all, we're going to go through it, but just briefly, what has changed in this drop from what we saw last week?
Paul, this is the gerrymandering hardball that Republicans feared that they didn't see in the first map. It squeezes 5 incumbent Republicans into 3 seats. 2 big primary matchups between Mike Bost and Mary Miller and Adam Kinzinger versus Darren LaHood. The big surprise, though, is that Sean Casten is now in the same district as Marie Newman, if that stays the same. And it creates a new Latino district, which is home to Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who could potentially be a frontrunner in a primary race there.
It's absolutely fascinating. I do want to ask you about this Casten versus Marie Newman race, because it really makes you wonder why the Democrats would pit 2 progressive congressmen against each other. Listen, Newman wasn't happy last time when it looked like she might be running against Kinzinger. She has to really be unhappy now, along with fellow Democrat Casten. What are they thinking?
Well, Congressman Casten, now they have 2 upset members of Congress, right? First, it was just Marie Newman. Here was the idea. They thought for her to get back to Congress, she's going to have to either win a majority Latino district or she's going to have to win that rural district where it was more Kinzinger's home turf. She was going to have a tough gauntlet either way. And our sources tell us that she wasn't very cooperative with the House Speaker or the Senate President or the governor's office as they were negotiating this. So they said, OK, if you don't want the Latino district, you don't want the rural district, fine, we'll put you in a primary and we'll see who the best candidate is.
Well, and as you mentioned, in this new Latino district, which is the 3rd, and it was her district is the 3rd. So if Carlos Rosa is thinking about this, that's one thing. But I mean, it doesn't make sense for Marie Newman when you carve out a Latino district. One wouldn't think she'd play very well in a newly drawn Latino district. And Dan Lipinski probably thinks he doesn't plan to come back either. I don't know.
Well, we don't know. He did say there was this first map Democrats floated just last week, and that was when Dan Lipinski started floating his name, saying, hey, if this thing gets a little bit more red-leaning, maybe I'll jump in. He was seen as the more moderate Democrat, Marie Newman the more progressive. So he saw a potential opening. This new map gives him less of an inroad there, but it would certainly be interesting. Right now, that district does have more Newman voters in it than Casten voters, so it's not guaranteed that Newman would lose. She might beat Sean Casten in that new district that comprises a lot of labor union voters, a lot of the southwest suburbs there.
And you mentioned Republicans. This is the map that they feared. Let's talk a little bit about the 16th district. It looks like Democrats said, well, it's going to go Republican, so they're pitting Darren LaHood, very, very conservative, and it looks like he will go up against Adam Kinzinger if Kinzinger runs. That's sort of a surprising situation to set up, because both conservatives, but does this send a message to Kinzinger, maybe I don't run for Congress?
Well, it almost invites him just to run for some other office. This district, if there are 2 relationships on the Hill among Republicans that are closer than any other, it's Darren LaHood and Adam Kinzinger. You wouldn't always know it from their pro-Trump, anti-Trump stance. Congressman LaHood has been far more defensive of President Trump even after January 6th. Obviously, we know Congressman Kinzinger has not been, but their staffs are very close. I would be shocked to see the Kinzinger-LaHood primary race. I'd far more expect Congressman Kinzinger to run for some other office or not seek re-election.
One would have also thought that, I mean, in that map of last week, it looked like Mary Miller, the true Trump supporter, would have been against LaHood, and I could see where Democrats would want to sort of pit them against each other. But now it appears that the Dems left Rodney Davis's alone this time, perhaps. His potential challenger is likely to take on the 13th district by herself. Could it be that they're betting that that he won't run for governor and cause problems for JB, trying to sort of keep him in his district?
This is an interesting thing. It depends on who you talk to in the Democratic Party or in Labor, but there are some people who think Rodney Davis has this sort of secret weapon. He's got a close relationship with a lot of trade unions, a lot of labor downstate. That's the one weak spot where Governor Pritzker can't afford to lose ground downstate. So they really want to keep him out of the governor's race, and we're seeing some of the governor's influence perhaps on the map in that regard. You mentioned the Mary Miller seat. I want to point something out. The last district that had her up against Darren LaHood had almost none of her current home turf, her home district. It just kind of scooped her home address and said, the rest of downstate, your old district, is going to Mike Bost. Well, now she's with Mike Bost, and it's a lot of her home turf. That would be a heated cage match primary, truly, between strength against strength, Mike Bost against Mary Miller, and that would be a race to the right, really.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, because again, there's nobody more supportive, I follow her on Twitter or whatever, than President Trump, than certainly Miller. Bost, very conservative, but how does that matchup look? What does that district look like in terms of who's in better shape?
Well, this district it would be one of the biggest in the state, but it includes a lot of the counties that have the biggest unemployment. There are a lot of real issues, and Bost has more experience in constituent services than Mary Miller does. Miller's office just recently was closed to people coming in without an appointment due to the coronavirus, and she has very little experience, being this is just her first term in Congress. So he might have the upper hand if he can go to some of these districts and say, I know how to serve your needs. I've been doing this longer, but she has that political oomph of being pro-Trump in a way that he might not be able to match.
And when we look at what will be the new 13th and 17th districts, basically it creates 2 open seats, but strongly Democratic. So it looks like the Democrats are basically saying, hey, we don't care who wins. We're just going to keep these seats Democratic. We'll see what happens.
Right, but you got to keep in mind, both of those were close races. Rodney Davis winning one, Sherry Bustos narrowly winning one. She's not seeking re-election. Both of these districts are about 43 or 44%. They went for Donald Trump in 2020. So in a midterm, does that part of the electorate have a backlash against Democrats who control the White House, Senate, and Congress in D.C.? Is there some Republican surge there? I wouldn't say those are absolutely locks for Democrats. They are drawn to elect Democrats, but those are going to be races where they have to actually run a contested election.
And just to sort of give a nod to the other Democrats who are running, and I know Bobby Rush is in a race. He's got somebody opposing him, but essentially it looks like Robin Kelly, Bobby Rush, Jesus Garcia, Mike Quigley, Davis, Raja Krishnamurthy, Jan Schakowsky, Brad Schneider, Foster, Underwood, they all look like they're fairly safe, at least from the mapping perspective.
When you look at the election data, it certainly seems to indicate that, though. I would point one thing out. The Bobby Rush district goes down and gets part of Channahon all the way down to Bourbonnais. The Congresswoman Robin Kelly, the new chair of the Democratic Party, she goes down to Danville and sweeps up a whole lot of rural farm county. This is Republican red turf. She feels confident running in spaces like that, and she still keeps a lot of the south suburbs. She still has that Matson area, the Calumet City, all that in her district. But it's really interesting to see just how far south some of these Democratic districts stretch this year.
I have to ask you, one thing that is different about this redistricting process is, let's be honest, there's no Mike Madigan. And in the past, you get a map drawn, and at best, Springfield would just tweak it. How much is Springfield, especially when I'm sure they're going to be hearing from some of the Congress members we've just talked about, how much of this do you have to say, when you take out leadership, experienced leadership like Madigan, and that's not a positive, negative comment, when you remove him, this is what happens?
Well, I think the one big difference that we're seeing is we've seen 2 different draft maps already. And they have until Thursday, really, to pass this final map. We expect them to pass the final map. This could still change. I don't think Speaker Madigan would have shown his cards at all. He was known for bringing people in, hearing what they wanted, and then basically just deciding this is what we're going to do and going with it. I don't know that we would have seen this much public input, really. I think this is a more open process. But I would point out, the Speaker's former government lawyer and his private consultant that would advise on the maps, they're still the same attorneys and experts that worked for Speaker Madigan that are doing this map. So all of the data, all of the technique is all still there. I think it's just more open with Speaker Welch at the helm and Senate President Harman. We're getting more public input than we might have with Speaker Madigan.
Mark Maxwell, thanks for getting up early for us on a Sunday morning. We will be in touch with you as this week unfolds. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Thanks, Paul. Good to see you.